I'd like to welcome Larry Golding here this afternoon. We're at the Fitness Summit in Austin in 2010. Interviewing Larry as part of ACSM's Distinguished Leaders in Exercise Science and Sports Medicine series. And I just wanted to start off, Larry, if you could tell us a little bit about your early career, your early education, and then when you became involved first with the American College of Sports Medicine.
Well, I'm not sure I can give you all the dates, but
well, close.
Yeah, right. But I joined ACSM when I think I was doing my master's, which was probably in around 51 or something of that type.
And where was that, Larry?
I did all my 3 degrees at University of Illinois in Champaign.
Oh, fantastic! So
and
was Curitin there then?
He was my mentor, and
beautiful.
Yeah, and so I'd been with ACSM as a student, and then gradually worked my way to where I was a full member, and then finally a fellow, and I've been involved with them ever since.
Let me go back there. What year did you start as a freshman at Illinois?
1946.
Okay, and where were you from?
South Africa.
Oh, right, okay. And you came over here because?
To go to college.
Mainly, did you hear of Curitin? Was
no,
he
not
there
really.
Then, or?
Not really. When I was in South Africa, I went to the U.S. Library of Information and got what they had then as the 5 best physical education schools in the United States, and I wrote to all of them.
So you knew you wanted to get into physical education.
Right, yes, definitely. And so I wrote to all of them, and only one turned me down, and I found out it was an all-girls school.
Good try.
Yeah, right. And then I got by far the nicest letter from Stuart Staley, who was the dean of
I know of him, of course. Yeah.
And so I came over and I started there, and being a foreign student, it was easier staying at one university. Mm-hmm. So I got my bachelor's there, then I started my master's, went out to the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho for 3 years, and during that time going back in the summers to summer school. And then finally to finish, and then finally taught at the University of Illinois while I was finishing my doctorate. And then from there, my first job was at Kent State University in Ohio.
Were you you did exercise physiology, right?
Right.
What was your dissertation on?
On the effect of exercise on serum lipids.
And that was with Curitin?
With Curitin.
Okay, and then you went to Kent?
I went to Kent, and I was hired at Kent basically to start an exercise physiology laboratory and program, which I did.
So you set up a lab, bought equipment?
Yep. And it was a great experience, and I was really happy there, and I never thought I'd ever leave. And then University of Nevada recruited me because the head of the department there had been a graduate student of mine years ago, and they wanted me to come out there. And I told him, I said, I'm not looking for a job. I'm happy here. And he said, well, come out for a vacation. And so my wife and I went out there for a week. And every time I was out there, everything they said was positive. And that was after the Kent State shootings, and education was down on the list of the legislatures, and budgets were bad, and everyone we talked to said, my Lord, you should go. And so finally, much to my wife's amazement and happiness, we left Kent and went out to Nevada, and I've never regretted it. I've had a great period there. We started a lab, started a program, and I've been there now, 35 years or something.
Wow. And at what point did you get involved with, I know I want to talk about the YMCA, but I guess involved with exercise outside of higher education? There's other people out there.
I'd been a swimmer, and was on the South African Olympic team the year they didn't have the Olympics.
Wow.
And so I was always interested in sports, although primarily swimming. And came over here, and then was on the Illinois swim team. And then when I became a master's student, I got involved with the Y. And I got involved with the Y.
And Curitin was very much involved with the Y.
He was also a very big Y person, right?
Yeah.
I got involved with it because I was in education, and most of the people in the field were going into colleges
Yes.
and high schools to
Right.
be PE teachers.
Right.
And I was unimpressed with the physical educators. They were usually overweight and they smoked and I thought this is, but then I suddenly was invited to a Y meeting and I suddenly found people who not only believed in fitness and exercise, but did it.
Did it, yeah.
And all of the Y physical directors were all fit, they were all exercising. And I became really involved with them and I thought this was great.
Mm-hmm.
And so for years I was their national consultant and did 5-day workshops. I used to do 13 of them a year and certified.
This started when you were at Illinois then?
Right.
And carried over
to Kent,
to Las Vegas?
and
Kent and Las Vegas.
Vegas, right.
Okay.
So I did an estimate because I had pictures of all of the workshops I was in.
Mm-hmm.
I had over about 4,500 specialists I certified with a Y. And along the way I was involved with ACSM, but not to that degree.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became involved with the health fitness when certification came along. In the ACSM, I became involved with that and began doing ACSM workshops.
For certification.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And matter of fact, with ACSM, I went to Tokyo and I went to South America to do workshop. It was good.
Yeah.
With them and the Y.
Well, then the other thing I wanted to talk about specifically was the idea about a fitness summit.
Well, the fitness summit came out of the fitness journal. Actually,
So
it
the
was,
journal started first?
Yes.
I didn't
yes.
know that.
Right.
And you were the first editor.
Right.
And where did that idea come from?
Well, it came from something that Williams and Williams did that published the MSSE, and they did a survey. Matter of fact, they had 40 focus meetings in 30 different states, and they basically bought people lunch for that's why they got the people then. They got Y directors and health club workers and physical therapists and people like that to come to lunch, had lunch, and then they said, we want to ask you 4 questions. First, what do you feel is the most credible organization for exercise and sports and fitness? And virtually everybody said ACSM. And the next question was, well, do you belong? And they said no. So the next question was obviously why. And they said, well, if we join, not only is it expensive, but then we get their journal, which
The
we can't
MSSE,
read
which-
because it's a scientific journal
Yeah.
and it isn't in our field. And if we go to the national meeting, we hear scientific papers on things that we are not scientists. We're practical people. And the last question they asked, they said, if ACSM put out a journal for people in the field that were interested in sports medicine from a personal fitness type of standpoint, would you prescribe? And they said, absolutely. So it went to the Board of Trustees, and they were not gung-ho. And I remember going to the Board of Trustees and saying, this is perfect. These people want to be involved, but you're not letting them join the program.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get membership because they didn't have the prerequisites. And so finally the board said, fine. And Tim White was the president, and he was the one who asked me to be the journal editor.
I'm trying to think when that was, and we could look it up to be sure, but mid-90s?
Oh, it was early 90s.
I'm trying to think
because,
when Tim was president.
well, yeah, but...
We can look it up.
Yeah, we
but-
could probably look it up.
So it's interesting that some of this started with the publisher, really.
Right, it did. And so then the journal went for a year, and then we were now catering, and I made this comment at one of the annual meetings. This is the first time that ACSM really has reached out to the personal trainer, the person who actually does and that's part of our whole purpose.
Absolutely.
And so then we began to think, well, if we've got a journal now for these people, so now we have MSSE for the scientists and the educators, and we have the Health Fitness Journal for the practitioner, now we need a meeting for them. So about a year and a half after the journal was published, we decided to try having an annual meeting with the same philosophy, with good scientific people giving presentations. But I remember how we used to send out a letter and say, when you have graphs, just have a simple graph. We don't want p-values. We don't want any statistics.
Just tell us what it
means.
Yeah.
And it's worked. And the summit has, of course, grown steadily, as you well know, through the years. And I can remember the first summit, I think we had about 500 people at it. And we thought that was great. And now slowly we've grown and grown and grown.
You were no doubt on the planning committees and for all these early ones.
Right. Well, I was chairman of the planning committee up until the time that Ed took over from me a few years ago. So I was the editor of the journal, which I just loved, and I just loved the summit. So I still went to national. I still got MSSE, but this was really, and everybody we recruited as editors and associate editors were people that were scientists but had one foot in the practical side of it. So they were not only just the book learning hierarchy, they were also the people who were
out there
actually doing it.
Larry, who were some of the allies that you had early on that were really trying to convince the board to do this? Like you say, some probably didn't like the idea.
Yeah, right. No, there were quite a number.
Was Steve Blair involved in that? Or I'm trying to think who would have been.
Yeah, I used to know him.
Well,
and
I thought you may just look back at some of those.
Yeah,
because there probably had to be a little argumentation.
There was, and there were a number of people who said this is a good idea, and these are a group of people that we haven't touched that we should have. And that's when they came up with the alliance membership.
I remember that.
Remember, it was strictly there so that these people could join the
so
ACSM.
They could be a member.
They could be a member, right? And it's grown stronger and stronger. And there were a number of people, and I wish I could now. In the early years, I used to mention them all the time because they had helped. But
what were your plans when you started the journal? Did you go out and look for some associate editors to help you?
Right. We needed an editorial board, and as I said, what we did was we looked for people in ACSM who were doing scientific work that were also involved with, and so those are the people we invited, and virtually everybody agreed, and it turned out to be a very good group of people.
Now, Jim Peterson was in that early group, wasn't he? He was in pretty early.
He was very early. I'm not exactly sure when he was first, sort of more officially in it, but he was in favor of from the beginning.
Okay. And so now I'm trying to think where we're at. Are we 1,200 people at these now?
Usually,
Larry,
anyway.
Like that?
Well, I think the biggest one we had was about 1,700, and we've always now stayed up in about that number of people. And with all of the competition now, and so many organizations like ACE and IDEA that have big meetings, and budgets are bad now, so we sort of expected a little bit of a down, but we really haven't had that down. Ours has grown steadily, membership-wise, attendance-wise.
Yeah. So the people that get the journal are the same people that come here,
basically. Right. I'm sure there are many people who come who don't get the journal, but because we get a lot of personal trainers who don't get a journal but come and then usually end up buying the journal after that, and vice versa, where they get the journal.
So they learn about one through the other.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's about it. I talked to Ed this morning a lot about his work with the journal, and you were editor 8 years or more?
9, I think, 9 or 10, and then and I recommended him because I felt that he was the same kind of person.
He just loves it.
I know. Well, he's a good scientist. He writes scientific articles, but he's also interested in exercise and does work out himself every day, and that's what you need.
Yeah. Do you remember any of your early column people or associate editors?
Well,
I want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, right.
There may be a name or two that pops up that aren't in it now.
Yeah, a lot of them still are in it. Actually, when you look at the list, I would say more than about half of them were part of the original group. Because basically ACSM had a policy that you could only be an editor-in-chief for 3 years, and then they rotated. And
You were the exception.
well, I was the exception because it was new. And you know, and there were MSS has been around for a long
true.
time.
They were better to
Lots
keep
of
this
people.
going
Right.
for a while.
And so everybody sort of felt, well, we should keep some continuity in it. And then finally, I think people decided they had to get rid of me. So,
I haven't heard that before. Well, thanks, Larry. That
It's been
was
my pleasure.
wonderful. I appreciate it very much.
it has been my pleasure.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
talking about it and